Like I was saying before about the burnout, like I could have gone pro immediately, done all these races, spent all my money in my first 2 years as a pro, and not much comes out of it. And I get burnt out and I say, this isn't for me, and I stop. Well, that's only giving myself 2 years. Like I know for me, long term success, it's going to take me a lot longer than 2 years to get where I need to be. So I need to be in this for 3, 4, 5 years to get where I need to be. So I got to make it last that 3, 4, 5 years and not go all in this year right now.
That is Justin Lippert this week on the Do It For Yourself podcast. Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode here on the Do It For Yourself podcast. My name is Ian and this is my podcast. Welcome. Thank you for coming and spending some time with us today. Before we get into this week's guest, I would just like to ask you for a quick favor. If you could, please take a minute and leave a review on whatever app it is that you are using to consume this podcast. I would greatly appreciate that, and it's going to help me a ton with this show. This week, we have none other than Mr. Full Send Justin Lippert on the podcast. And if you have found your way to this podcast through Justin's profile or through mine, and you are from the triathlon world, I'm sure you are very familiar with who Justin Lippert is. But if you are not from the triathlon world, you may want to take a look at some of Justin's accolades. He has won the USA Triathlon National Championship not once, not twice, but 4 times. He has won at the sprint distance. He has won twice at the Olympic distance in back-to-back years. He won the long course USA Triathlon National Championship, and he is the duathlon national champion, along with many other accolades from his collegiate racing career. Justin is an amazing, amazing athlete, and he has come from a cross-country background, and we get a chance to dive into his running career and how it started and how it subsequently then ended while he was at Clemson, and how he bounced back from that. So I am not going to take away anything from Justin's story. I will allow him to do the storytelling right now. All right, right on. Well, if you're ready, then I'm ready to rock and roll.
I'm ready.
All right, man, let's do it. So this is an interview that's been a long time coming. I've been back and forth with you on Instagram trying to get you to jump on the podcast. Initially, there were some things that had happened, and you sent me a message back. And again, as I said before we started recording, I really respect you for making this decision. But you said, "Hey, listen, there was some stuff that went down, and I just don't feel like this is the right time to sit down and do an interview. So get back with me when things kind of settle down." So I appreciate you linking up with me now that things have settled down, and I'm really, really looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Me too.
So, Mr. Justin Lippert, Mr. Full Send, um, I'm very excited to have you on the show today because, like I said, I think we're gonna open up the book a little bit, and we're gonna be able to kind of show people, what you're all about. I feel like people see some of the stuff that's posted online. People see some of the slow twitch forms, which we were talking about, but people don't really know you. And so I'm looking forward to getting an opportunity to sit down and really tell your story. And so the first thing that I want to start with is you just recently, wrapped up your season. You raced Kona in October, which we'll get to. But post Kona, you got some fairly devastating news, and you had a pretty serious injury. So how's the injury going? How's the rehab going?
Yeah, not well. The short answer is it's not going well. Um, so at Kona, I was running. If anyone's not familiar with what happened, um, I was having some mild discomfort in like the hip region for a couple months leading into Kona. I didn't think too much of it. And then the race started. I got on the bike and I felt the discomfort right away on the bike. So just kind of had to push through that the entire bike leg. Got off. I started running. It was fine while I was running. And I made it to about the halfway point on the run, so 13 miles. And then it had been getting like slightly worse, with each step that I took until around that 13-mile mark. It was so painful. My both hips, they were just locked up. I was in so much pain. It didn't matter if I was running or walking or standing or sitting. It was just painful. So obviously in Kona, you can't just like stop. You got to, pay respects to the race and the island and everyone there. So I ended up finishing the race, just kind of like walk it in, jog it in, you know, tried to beat the sun to the finish line and not finish in the dark. So I got home then from Kona and, I started this like wild goose chase to kind of figure out what exactly was wrong, and how to fix it. So, we were checking for tears in the glutes, tears in the labrum, and an MRI showed that I did have a small tear in my labrum, which is the hip labrum. It's like the socket in the hip where the femur goes in. And then, if it's torn in there, then as your femur kind of moves around, it can, irritate and cause the pain. But, I saw a hip specialist in New York City at Columbia, and he said that the tear in the labrum was not really the issue, he thought. So I was like, okay. So I started running again and the pain came back. So I had to kind of figure out, okay, what else? So I saw the athletic trainer at my university, at Queen's University. And what he thinks and what we think it is now is proximal hamstring tendinopathy. So that is the tendon that connects the hamstring to the ischial tuberosity, which is just like your butt bone, is inflamed and causing the pain. And that's inflamed because my hamstrings are being overworked. And my hamstrings are being overworked because I have a weakness in my glutes that we think could possibly be a glute strain or a small tear that was, made even worse by racing Kona, as hard and long as I did. So, that's kind of what we're going off of. And it's not an injury that's very common or there's very much research on it. So, we're just kind of doing the best we can, which involves strengthening the hamstring and the hamstring tendon, as well as, the glute muscles and trying to let them heal and strengthen up. So I've still basically haven't ran since Kona. It's February 1st now. So 3 months, pretty much no running. So just hoping to start getting out there soon.
Which
But
is
yeah.
that has to be tough for you because you come from a running background, you
Yeah.
know?
So it's tough because I love running. I
Mhm.
love to run. It makes me happy. It's probably the most meditative of the three disciplines and one that I, really enjoy to do. But from a pure training standpoint of like, what do I need to do to get better in the sport of triathlon? That's not running. What I need to do to get better is I need to become a better swimmer and a better biker. because the run's already there.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I can't run, that's okay, because now we just have extra time to focus on my weaker two disciplines.
Which is funny that for you, you list cycling as one of your weaker disciplines when, if you look at some of your times, cycling is definitely you're definitely a strong cyclist.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank
but
you.
your your running started early for you. I mean, you ran in high school and then went on to run at Clemson. So before we get into your high school and college career as a runner, when did running start prior to that?
Prior to high school, so my parents both ran. They were runners. My dad ran at Rutgers. Um, he was like a 403 miler in college. My mom went to Villanova to run. She never actually ended up running because she had some medical issues. So kind of running was in the family. I didn't do any formal running or training before high school.
Okay.
We would, I mean, we had like a local race in the town that I grew up in. It was like, I don't know, a 2 mile race, for the kids, in like middle school and stuff. So we would do that each year, but we wouldn't like train for it or anything. And, you could tell me and my brother and my sister, we all had the genes. We had just like that natural talent. Um, I think I won it one year, but always finished relatively well. And then I ran in middle school. And again, nothing intense. It was just middle school running. You show up to practice, you run like a mile or two, and then you do the races, and that's the season. It wasn't until sophomore year of high school that I started, actually like running.
And that was running, you were running cross country, right?
Yep, cross country and track and field, indoor and outdoor. So it's pretty much all year round.
Okay, so you were, yeah, because usually I think cross country's in the fall.
Hmm.
And then they usually have winter indoor track.
Yep.
And then obviously track and field is in the spring. So
Yep.
you were doing something around running every season.
Yep. All year round.
And then obviously, I'm sure in the summer you were probably just running on your own because, like you said, this is something that you get joy out of. It's something that you really love to do.
Yeah.
And so you are, coming towards the end of your high school career. And did you know at that point that you wanted to continue your running career into college?
Oh yeah, for sure. So I was looking at a few colleges, junior and senior year. So I knew that, running was a big factor in my decision of where to go to college, because I wanted it to be somewhere that I could run and make a contribution to the team.
Hmm. And so you applied to a couple schools, I'm sure. And Clemson was obviously one of the schools that
Go Tigers.
accepted to.
Yeah.
Um, so did you have a chance to meet with the team, talk with the coach, go through that whole process? Like what really drew you to Clemson?
I met with the coach my junior year. We were down in North Carolina for the New Balance Outdoor Track Nationals. So it was a short drive to Clemson after that, and I visited with the coach and toured the facilities. I didn't get to meet with the team because it was June, so they were all home. No one was at school. And then that coach ended up leaving later that summer. So I was going into my senior year, and there was a coaching change at Clemson. Um, so I never got down to visit Clemson a second time. But I really love the school. I wanted to be in the South with the warm weather in the winter, because coming from New Jersey, it sucks, running all winter when it's like 20 degrees out. Um, and the team seemed like a great fit for me because, they were D1 and I was at the level where I should have been running D1. But they're not like a powerhouse. I wasn't that good where, I belonged at like a powerhouse school. So Clemson was somewhere where I felt, I could go and, maybe make it onto the varsity team in my first year or two. And then by junior or senior year, kind of, maybe be towards the upper half of the guys on the team, top few leading the team. So I thought it was just a great fit for me all around. So That's why I chose there.
And so you get there, you run your freshman year, you run, part your sophomore year,
Hmm.
but somewhere in there, you you have this thought, you have this feeling that maybe this isn't what you're supposed to be doing. Maybe this isn't the team you're supposed to be a part of. And it seems like you're, almost getting a little bit of this doubt that maybe it's not self doubt, but it's a doubt that this isn't the place for you to be. And so walk me through that doubt. What was going on? Was it a team thing? Was it a coach thing? Was it just something with you personally that was going on that started to make you think like, maybe this thing isn't for me?
Yeah, so I loved running. Like I was 300% into it. In high school, I was that kid looking at results from every race, every weekend. I could tell you, you know, the school that's, a 2 hour drive from us, I could tell you their top seven kids and the times they ran at the race 3 weekends ago. I knew everything. I was so into it and I had so much passion. I love the sport so much. I go to college, like I bring that same passion and enthusiasm with me into college. And like running is just something that I loved. And I loved it freshman year. I loved it sophomore year. I loved it. I love it today. Um, but the issue at Clemson was with the coaching staff. The team was great. My teammates were great. I'm still great friends with the kids who I was teammates with. But and it's a problem that's at a lot of colleges, a lot of college programs. Um, the coaches, the coach that I dealt with at Clemson, you know, didn't make the environment conducive to running well or enjoying yourself. Like I woke up every day and I dreaded going to practice because of the environment that was created by the coaches. Um, so everyone that was in my incoming freshman class quit. I
Wow.
was the I was the last one standing from my incoming freshman class. So, you know, if that doesn't tell you about what the atmosphere was like on the team, then, I don't know what else will. But, there were maybe 8 or 9 of us. And when I came back to the team my junior year, I was the only one left.
Wow.
So, I mean, and it's also a testament to how much I love the sport. Like I didn't want to give it up
Right.
because I knew how much I loved it. So, these other kids were like, oh, yeah, this sucks. I'm out. And I'm like, this sucks, but I love it. Like I
Mhm.
still love this sport, even though it sucks. Um, but yeah, I just couldn't take it anymore. So I quit the team too. And I remember I reached out to my high school coach and I said like, hey, I'm quitting, but I still want to run. Like I still love running. If you could send me, just some workouts to do, and I'll try to find some races for a track season. And he was like, yeah, of course. So he sends me, a list of workouts. And I was like, sweet. All right, I'm going to do this one tomorrow. And I remember I was laying in bed thinking about how I was going to do this workout tomorrow. And I was so excited. I was like, butterflies in my stomach, like, like the old days of running. Like the joy and the passion was back because I was, back to running for myself and for why I loved running and what I wanted to do rather than, this bureaucratic, team that I was on where the, atmosphere that was created was not good and I didn't want to be a part of it.
Now, did you ever consider transferring to a different school to be a part of a different
No,
team?
it just really wasn't an option for me. I love the school so much. Like I loved being at Clemson, itself. Everything outside of running was amazing. And additionally, I wasn't that good of a runner. I mean, I'm obviously good, but in terms of collegiate running, I was just mediocre. So already being a junior, there's not many teams that would want to accept, a junior onto their team if they're not going to have an immediate impact. So I was just kind of, in a tough spot and, just gave up collegiate running completely.
And even though the situation, may have made the decision a little bit easier, was it still something that you sat on and really thought about for quite some time before walking away from the team, because you were coming to the realization that if you walked away from this team, you weren't going to be running competitively?
Yeah. Yeah. It was tough. It was definitely tough, but it wasn't like a sit down and think about it type deal. It kind of happened over the course of, many months. I went into my junior year already pretty defeated. And at that point, it was a question of when instead of a question of will I.
Mhm. And so you walk away from the Clemson running team, and some of the other athletes and your teammates were on the triathlon team that they had there, and
Hmm.
this was a club team.
Yeah.
But obviously you have a relationship with these guys. You've been running with them, for 2.5 years. Some of them maybe had quit before that 2.5 year mark, but you
Hmm.
had already, you already established a relationship with a lot of these people. So what was the conversation like? And did you go spectate a race first? And were you exposed to it that way? Or were you hanging out with them and you were exposed to it, just purely by being in the environment of these guys who were training?
Yeah, it was a combination. So I had a few good friends who, were racing on the triathlon team, and they would have, it was a club team. It wasn't a varsity team or, anything super official like that. So a big part of it was partying. So I'd go out and I'd hang with the tri team because they were pretty cool to party with. Um, and I was like, yeah, this is sick. And, they all had like bikes, and that was like really cool. You go fast, they look cool. So that was kind of intriguing to me. And then my junior year in the spring, the collegiate nationals was held at Clemson.
Oh, nice.
So my friends were racing in that, and my good buddy, and you might know his name, Jack Felix, was racing for Clemson, and he was really new to the sport too. Um, and his big goal was trying to race to get his pro card because top three get their pro card at collegiate nationals. So, me and my running friends went to go support Jack. And that, it was just crazy watching like this triathlon race. I was like, this is sick. I need to do this. And, to add to it, Jack did end up getting third and qualified for his pro card, which was, also sick. So, just having that experience, I was like, oh, wow, I need to try this. So, I got a bike and started training, and, I'm sure as many people can relate. You just fall in love with it, and that's the beginnings.
What about your personality saw someone racing a triathlon, and especially at the collegiate level, I'm sure there is a heavy amount of suffering that's going on in that race.
Yeah.
What about your personality and in your head made you look at that situation and probably look at your friend suffering so hard and say, "Yeah, I need to do this."
That's so true. No, I was always that kid running who wanted to do more. I was like, if I could run nonstop, just run indefinitely, like, Forrest Gump style, like I would. It's just that's not really possible in running. You can only run so much and do so much before your body just breaks down from running. Um, so triathlon, I'm watching this, and like you can suffer so much more in a triathlon than you can in a running race because you got the multiple disciplines. And then especially in training, you can train so much more because swimming and cycling are, less taxing on the body than running is. So you can put in 20, 25, even 30-hour weeks in triathlon and not break down. Whereas running, once you're at, 70, 80, 90, 100-mile weeks, that's pretty much maxing it out. So yeah, it's definitely some crazy whacked out mentality that all of us triathletes have, but I saw it and I was like, yes, I need this in my life.
And so your first race was the New Jersey State Triathlon, and believe back in that time, that was still the New Jersey State Championship race.
Yes.
And so was that purely just a logistical decision? Because that's a very big race to sign up for a first timer. Like I personally, and I mean, your background is a little bit different, but someone who's coming into this sport completely new, um, that's probably not a race that I would suggest to someone just purely based off of the size. And,
Yeah.
like those swim waves, when those swim waves start, there's a lot of people in those swim waves because it's a very competitive race. And especially back at that time, I mean, I raced it a few years ago and it was still just as competitive, even though it was no longer the state championship. But
Hmm.
um, that's a very competitive race, but you being from New Jersey, was that purely just a logistical decision
Yeah,
for you because it was close, it was, easy to get
exactly.
to?
Yeah, it was just purely a logistical decision. I didn't really think too much about it, honestly.
Well, and I mean, you're a college kid, so funds are, pretty limited at that
Yeah,
point in
yeah,
time. You
that
can't
too.
you can't be like traveling halfway
Yeah,
across the country or,
exactly. It had to be somewhere drivable, and I didn't want to go somewhere just for my first race and, travel halfway across the country and be like, wow, this sucks.
Mhm.
So yeah, I just picked a local one. I was like, oh, NJ State seems good, seems legit. Sign me up. Let's try it out.
And so you go. And as I said in the before we started recording, in a very modest way, you put it online, but you said you had a decent showing, and I'm putting air quotes around decent because your decent showing was eighth overall and an age group win at the New Jersey State Triathlon. So that's and being a resident of New Jersey for your age group, you're then the New Jersey State Championship for your age group in your first race ever.
Hmm. Yeah,
So, talk to me about that race. I mean, obviously, coming from a running background, it's a very fast race. So, that run course probably played to your strengths big time.
yeah.
But overall, like, how did you feel about that day when all was said and done and you crossed the finish line?
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest question was the swim for me because at that point I had been swimming for like less than a year. I never swam growing up. Picked up swimming solely because of the triathlon. Um, and I just had no clue like where I would finish. Like I could come out, somewhat decent, but I could also be like way behind everybody. Like I just had no clue how the swim would turn out, and I was pleasantly surprised with my swim, because I came out obviously not in the lead or anywhere close to it, but I came out and I was like, there's people around me. Like I'm not like behind everybody. Like I'm in it. So that was cool. And then I hop on my road bike that was two sizes too big for me, and my helmet that had a mountain bike visor on it. And I just ride my heart out as hard as I could, hop off, run as hard as I could. In the heat, it was hot. It was so hot
Always.
that day. It was
Always.
brutal.
That race is notoriously
Yeah,
hot.
yeah. And I had a blast. So it was cool. I was hooked.
Yeah,
Was
and
hooked.
I feel like so many of the triathletes that I talk to, whether it be for the podcast or just in casual conversation, I would say probably 95 to 99% of the people have the same response. But I will say, um, the 90 to 95%, and above who stick with this race and stick with this, I shouldn't say with this race, but with this sport,
Hmm.
um, they start at a race like New Jersey State, right? They start at an Olympic distance or a sprint distance race and they are hooked. And they're not coming at this from a bucket list standpoint and just going out and saying, "Okay, I'm going to start training for an Ironman, and
Hmm.
Ironman is going to be my first triathlon," which is it's absolutely possible and it's totally fine. But I would say the big caveat there is the people who stick with this sport long term, 9 times out of 10 are the people who start at a shorter distance race like that and then get sucked into the sport and maybe down the road compete in an Ironman.
Yeah. No, that is 100%. I'm with you on that. My mentality going in, I mean, it was really like I loved training. I love running and I love riding my bike. I can't say the same about swimming, but I just love doing those two things so much. If I wasn't racing, I'd still be running and I'd still be riding my bike.
Hmm.
So it was kind of a thing of like, oh, I run. Oh, I like riding my bike. Oh, collegiate nationals was like the coolest thing I've ever seen. I'm going to race as well. It was never a goal of I want to race a triathlon. It was just kind of like a consequence of what I enjoyed to do.
In 2018, I'd like to coin that as your breakout year.
That's
Um,
fair. Fair enough.
and so you entered some big races in 2018. You had a draft legal race in Claremont. You do 70.3 Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and you do the collegiate club nationals.
Mm-hmm.
And you have, some very, very good results at those particular races. And so, what was the difference between your 2017 season and your 2018 season that you feel brought you to that next level?
I honestly, I just was training a whole nother year. I mean, when I did that first race at NJ State, I had owned a bike for like 5 months, and I had been swimming for, like 5 months. Whereas the next year in 2018, that was actually 2016. And then 2017, I was kind of injured, so I only raced like once or twice. And then 2018 was this year we're talking about now. So I had like a whole year and a half more of training under my belt at this point. Um, and it was nothing too structured. Like I didn't have a coach at this point.
Mhm.
It was I would almost never do any intervals or anything. I would just go out, ride my bike. I like riding my bike. I just ride it as much as I can and then just run and just swim, like nothing structured. Um, yeah, and then had some good results in 2018.
And speaking of a coach, I want to talk about your decision to then start working with a coach because as a triathlon coach, this is a question that I get a lot. So, how did you get to that point where you said, "Okay, I want to hire a coach"? Obviously, you had some very successful results, but there are people who are finishing, mid pack in the age group, who still have a coach. So,
Mm-hmm.
was this to get you to the next level? Was this an accountability piece, or was this a combination of the two where it's like, okay, I need some accountability. I don't really know what I'm doing, but obviously I have the talent, I have the skill, I can get to that next level. I just don't know how to get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's exactly that. It's to get to the next level. I mean, I at Texas 70.3, my time was 4:03, and I did that uncoached with unstructured training. Um, so I think that at that point, if I had not hired a coach, I think I would still be at that same exact spot. I don't think I would ever have gotten any faster than that doing what I was doing. I had no structured training. I did not do interval workouts. Really, I would just go ride my bike. If I was feeling good, I'd ride hard. If wasn't feeling good, I'd ride easier. And the same thing with running and swimming. I'd just get in the pool and I'd just swim laps. If I felt good, I'd swim laps harder. And that kind of got me to that point. And I think if I continued doing that for another year, 2 years, 3 years, I think I would have not gotten any better. So yeah, I started working with a coach, and we introduced periodization and structured workouts, intervals, working all the different energy systems and everything that goes along with uh, research based and all this actual ways to train for a triathlon. And I think that is, moving forward from that point early 2018 to then I started working with my coach mid 2018 and onward is why I continued to improve as an athlete from that point on.
So your races of Texas 70.3,
Hmm.
collegiate club, that
Yep.
stuff. That was all early on in the season.
Yes, that was all early on in the season. Texas was in April,
Okay.
and Collegiate Nationals was also in April. It was a couple weeks after, and
Okay.
I had not had a coach at that point.
So you end up hiring a coach, and obviously with some of your results, you qualified for the USA National Championship.
Yep.
So that requires some travel from where you are.
Hmm.
That's a pretty big commitment now to
Yeah.
travel out there and do the race. Um, Talk to me about your decision to end up registering for the USA National Championship and what that looked like because of the amount of travel to get out to Cleveland and do that race.
Hmm. I think it was a no-brainer. I wanted to race, an actual race with the best of the best. Similar to how collegiate club nationals is very, very, very good athletes race that race. The best, 18 to 24-year-old and even older athletes race collegiate nationals. So I wanted another race like that. And, obviously being a college student, I'm not going to fly and do like 4 different 70.3s across the country. I was able to just pick one. I said, okay, I want to do 170.3. That was Texas. And that required me to, travel, drive a far way, and age group nationals. Those are my two big races, one in April, one in August. And that's how I'm going to kind of budget for the travel and the race entry fees. And I really didn't race much outside of those two races.
And this is a topic that when your name comes up, this topic comes up right next to it. But with a good result at Texas or a good result at USA Nationals, you could qualify to get your elite or pro license.
Hmm.
But your reasoning to go race those two races had nothing to do with that decision. You were purely going to race against the best of the best just to see where you stack up
Hmm.
against those guys.
Yeah.
And so we got to get into your trip to Cleveland in 2018
Yeah.
because when I saw on Instagram on Sunday, because I only raced on Saturday, I did not
Hmm.
race on Sunday. So I was following obviously the USA Triathlon Instagram page, and they put up this video of you and they say back to back champ.
Yeah.
And I had raced in Omaha the year before. So I'm looking at this picture and I'm like, I don't recognize this guy. And, I mean, what, back to back, what? So then, of course, I start digging into it further and I'm like, holy shit, this guy is literally back to back, like Saturday and Sunday. So you not only won the overall national championship title for the Olympic distance race, but you came back the next day and won the overall title for the sprint distance national championship. How? How? That's my only question. How? Like, what did your body? I know what my body felt like on Sunday, and I woke up at like 8 o'clock. I woke up and you were done. So I mean, what goes through your head to say, "All right, I'm gonna do both, and not only am I gonna do both, but I'm gonna win both"?
Well, to be honest, that was the goal going into the weekend. I went to Cleveland with the goal of not winning once, but winning twice. So that was already in my head. I wasn't going to settle for anything less. And if you want to know the secret, I'll tell you the secret of how to do 2 day races. And I had done 2 day races before, or 2 day races, or two races in 2 days, back to back race days, whatever you want to call it. Because the Claremont Draft Legal Race, early season, that is the EDR. It's Saturday, Sunday. There's two races. Collegiate Club Nationals, you have the draft legal race on Friday, and then the standard non-draft race on Saturday. And then age group nationals, you have the Olympic distance Saturday and the sprint distance Sunday. So, I had done it a few times, and I think it's a strength of mine is the second day. I think I'm just as strong on the second day as I am on the first day. And this is my secret. This is what I do. So you finish the first race, right? And after that, your body wants to rest and recover. Now, I don't know how much of this is backed by science. This is my anecdotal evidence. This is what I think. So don't take this as the holy grail. This is just what I'm saying. Your body wants to rest and recover. So your body wants to go into recovery mode. It wants to lay down, it wants to go to sleep, and it starts to want to recover on the muscles and everything that was used that day. You can't let your body get into that recovery mode, because once you do, then you're pretty much shot, and you're not going to be able to get as much out of yourself the next day. So in Cleveland, I raced on Saturday. I got whisked away to the drug tent, and I had to stay there for a couple hours. Then I went back to the place I was staying at, and I went for a run. So you might think I'm crazy that I just won a national championship and then I go home and go for a run. But, I like to keep my body firing, and I like to stay on. So I was like, I'm not going to let my body relax and think we're done, because we're not. So I went for a run that night, went to the awards ceremony, came home, wake up the next morning, run. I'm not letting my body sleep at all. Well, I mean, I slept, but I'm not letting my body think, okay, we're done. So I wake up, I run, loosen the legs out, and then I drive to the race site and race. So that's my secret. People ask me, how do you do it? That's how I do it. I don't know if I'm helping myself or hurting myself, but that's what I do.
So those two runs, your run post-Olympic and then your run in the morning, what are we talking? Are we talking 20 minutes, 30 minutes?
Yeah,
What kind of intensity?
We're talking 15, 20 minutes. If you're really not feeling good, maybe 10 minutes. And it could be a bike ride too. Sometimes I won't run, but I might just spin my bike really easy for 20 or 30 minutes, just to keep moving, keep the blood flowing, and stay awake and active.
Now, after you're back-to-back, you go on and you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to make this. Let's just see if I can do a clean sweep and go down to Miami.
Yeah.
And let's just see if I can do, this Miami and do the long course nationals, take a clean sweep of the podium for all of the national titles that year. How do you make that transition from Olympic distance and sprint distance to the 70.3 distance?
Well, you'll have to ask my coach on that one.
Okay.
But yeah, my coach and I, it's a lot of, hey, I know we're training for sprint and Olympic distance races, but I think I might want to do an Ironman. And then he's like, oh my God, that's not what we're training for. So, it's a lot of that, but I think, I can't really say it's anything that I do. It's just, I tell my coach, hey, I want to do this race. And he says, all right, that wasn't the plan, but I'll change it. And, he kind of handles everything else from the training that goes into it. But, fitness is fitness. So I won the Olympic age group nationals in August, and the 70.3 race was in November. So I'm still extremely fit in August. So it's just tweaking that fitness from sprint/Olympic to 70.3. So just a little specificity towards 70.3 and you'll be fine, because the fitness is still there. And what we do during training year round, no matter what we're training for, no matter what training block we're in, no matter what periodization cycle, whatever you want to call it, we hit every training zone year round. Okay. So we might be in a, threshold block where, that might be 6 weeks long and it's primarily threshold workouts. We're still going to do something at VO2 max. We're still going to do some, maximal effort things. We're still going to do some sub threshold efforts throughout that training block. So we're hitting and engaging every energy system all year round. So, no matter what you're training for, even though the focus might be on threshold, you're still hitting everything else. So we were still hitting, throughout the year, the zones that are important for a 70.3, even though we're training mainly for Olympic.
And through this whole time in 2018, you you were racing with it's the dudes of Northeast, right?
Nor'easter.
Nor'easter. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're racing with these guys, which is, you have a team camaraderie there, but
Hmm.
you never raced for one of these big teams of, the Wadi Inks or the Andy Potts Racing or the Big
Hmm.
Sexy, any of these guys. Um, how come you never had any, and I don't know if you did or not, but you never raced for those guys.
Hmm.
Um, was there a little bit of, man, I know what my experience was like at Clemson. That was a big team. I want to keep it small, and more controlled. So I'm not gonna go and race as part of this gigantic team where not everybody knows everybody.
Yeah, it's a little different than that, I think. I don't see those teams as teams. I see those teams as, you know, a marketing stunt by the company. It's, Wadi Inc. is not a team. Wadi Inc. is a company, and they have a team that is meant to be ambassadors for the product that they're trying to sell so that they can make more money. At the end of the day, these teams that are actually companies are, out there to push more product and, increase sales. Um, I think most of them are also making money off of the athletes that are on their team. So it's not a bad thing necessarily. And these teams do provide a lot of great benefits for the athletes on them. So I'm not saying that I dislike these teams, because they do provide, that sense of community. They provide a lot of resources, a lot of benefits. A lot of them have, sponsor benefits. When you travel to races, you'll have other people on your team going to the races and you can hook up with them. It just wasn't for me. It's not something that ever interested me.
Hmm. But something that did interest you is that team atmosphere,
Hmm.
and your coined phrase from nationals in that year was full send. And it's something that you would tell yourself when you're on the bike. It was your self check. Like, am I going full send right now? Am I going as hard as I can for this designated point in the race? And that transformed into a team that is now under the name of Full Send. But what is really the reason for you creating this team of Full Send?
Yeah, I mean, it's all those benefits of a team. It's such an individual sport. Triathlon is, and everybody wants a sense of belonging. Everybody wants a community. Everybody wants to be a part of something, and that's what all these teams provide. Um, so I made Full Send because, you know my approach to racing might be different than some other people's, in that I'm not there to finish well. You know, when I step up to a race, I'm there to win. Like, if I don't win, I don't care. So that's what Full Send is. When I'm in the race, it's, you know, I don't care what I'm capable of. It's what do I need to do to win? And I'm going to do that for as long as I possibly can. If I blow up, I blow up. And it's happened. When I raced collegiate nationals back in 2018, I came off the bike. I was in the lead. I went like a bat out of hell. I was like, I'm going to win this thing, and no one's catching me. I ran as fast as I could, so hard, and I blew up. I was in the lead with 400 meters to go, and I got eighth place. You know, but that's Full Send. Like, I could have said, I'm going to run within myself and put myself in a position to place well. Maybe first, maybe second, maybe third, maybe fourth, but I'm not going to risk blowing up. That's not how I do it. I said, I'm going to win or I'm not. So that's kind of the mentality behind Full Send. And I know there's other people out there that like that. So I wanted to kind of bring that all together in a team that's not a company. People sometimes refer to Full Send as a business. I don't think of it as my business. It's not something I'm making money off of. It's not something I'm trying to make money off of. We're not a company. We're not pushing products. There's no requirements of being on the team, really. I mean, one requirement is like you have to wear the kit when you race, because that's like, obviously you're on the team, you wear the kit. But outside of that, there's no, you have to make X amount of social media posts. You have to, get so many people to use your discount code, blah, blah, blah. We're not a company. We're not pushing a product. We're just a group of people that love the sport. We have a similar mindset. We love the community. We love the engagement, the outreach, and all that stuff. And we're together doing it together.
Full Send could mean something different to each individual that's on that team, though. Like Full Send to someone who's on that team, their Full Send might be, I'm going to send it as hard as I can for as long as I can to beat my time from last year,
Yeah.
or to have a better bike, or to have a better run. It doesn't necessarily have to be everyone is going out with the same mentality as you, Justin Lippert,
Mm-hmm.
to win every race that they register for.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not Full Send, I'm going to mad dash sprint for as long as I can until I pass out. It's like, I like to say sometimes too, like, if it's a recovery day, like Full Send the recovery day. Like if you're supposed to jog easy for 30 minutes, Full Send, jog easy, exactly how easy you're supposed to jog for exactly how long you're supposed to jog for. If you're supposed to run a sub threshold interval, Full Send that sub threshold interval. You better be sub threshold. You shouldn't be over threshold. So it does apply, in many, many different ways, but it's, do your best.
Yeah, you're not saying, okay, I have a recovery run or a recovery ride. I'm gonna Full Send this recovery ride and ride it in at threshold watts
Yeah,
for
exactly.
that ride. Like
That's not good.
that's full stupid, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
so um I think that there might be a little bit of a misconception by some, not by everyone, but I think there might be a little bit of a misconception that like, oh man, Full Send, like these guys are going hard all the time. Like that's not the team for me, or that doesn't make
Yeah.
sense, or like, but it's not the case.
Yeah. But when it applies to me racing, that's how I race.
Hmm.
All out.
So, post all these national championship titles that you have. USA Triathlon did a piece on you. Um, Slow Twitch obviously has some forums. As I said to you before, I don't get on Slow Twitch. I have no interest in being on Slow Twitch. Um, I've read one Slow Twitch thread before. I didn't even read your Slow Twitch thread. I'm sorry.
That's
Um,
okay.
but I did read the Slow Twitch thread on Love the Pain, just purely for the entertainment purposes of that. So if anyone's listening and you haven't checked out uh, the forum on Love the Pain through that, I highly, highly suggest it because it's pretty funny. But really, what I'm getting at here is there's some people out there that have opinions on you that have no idea who you are, what you're about, anything. They saw you at a race in a Speedo and they're like, what's this guy's deal? And they already have an opinion formed on you.
Hmm.
So, what do you think is probably one of the biggest misconceptions that, and I don't know if you've read the forums either, but what do you think is one of the biggest misconceptions about you on these forums or online or anywhere?
I think a lot of it stems from, well, there's two things. So one is that I'm not humble, people would say, and that I'm, cocky, braggish, show offy. Um, And I definitely do come off that way. If you follow me on social media, that's probably what you'll say. You'll say, look, all he's doing is posting stuff of him winning, you know, calling people out, saying, blah, 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 whatever, being a show off, being a bragger. And I mean, that's not how it is, really. I mean, I finish every race, and I'm like, damn, like I wish I could have done so much better. Like, everyone, my friends, my teammates, they know, like, I'm a humble guy. Like, I speak so respectfully of my competitors. I'm very respectful of the competition, and it's more of like a presence that I put out online that is, a super inflated version of this like outlandish person that, it's like entertaining, like I'm trying to almost be entertaining. So people see that, and, it's an Instagram personality, not like a real life personality. So that's one big thing. A lot of people have an issue with the I'm not humble, because I might say after a race the full send quote instead of where they would expect someone to say, "Oh yes, it was a great race. I'm so glad to be here and so thankful for everything that everyone has done for me." And yeah, the canned response, that's a respectful response that you would expect from a pro racer, or whatever. It's that canned response, where I like to show a bit more flair, and I guess that's not the way they would do it, so they take issue with it. And then the other big thing is that I haven't taken my pro card. Well, I did take my pro card earlier this month. But, they see this kid, he almost wins collegiate nationals, but blows up and gets 8th. He does 4:03 at Texas. He wins age group nationals. He wins age group nationals the next day. He wins the 70.3 age group nationals. He's qualified for his pro card like 4 times, and he's still racing amateur. And it's like, why? Like, how can he be doing this? If that was me, I would have taken the pro card the first time I earned it, because I want to race pro. What's wrong with this kid? I hate him. And they kind of like, they blow it up because it's not necessarily the way they would have done it. But, I have a kind of a different approach. For me, racing pro is not the goal. The goal is to be the best. I want to win championships at the pro level. I want to be not an age group world champion, but I want to be the world champion. So, going pro, getting the designation of a pro, it's a part of the process. Like, you have to do that to get into those races, but it in and of itself was never really the goal. It's just kind of like part of what happens. So I think that for my longevity and what's best long term for me was to race amateur that second year, which was this past year in 2019. After all those national championships, I still wanted to race amateur because, I knew deep down I wasn't really ready to race pro.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I've earned it. I've earned the card. I've earned the designation. I could if I wanted to. But, there's guys out there who would still cream me in every discipline. I mean, in my strongest discipline, running, they would still cream me, and they're swimming way faster and biking way faster. So you see it a lot where people take their pro card immediately, and they try to then do all these races, which you need to, when you're doing the pro races, you got to go to the pro races. You got to fly here, fly there. You got to do them. And, it's easy to get burnt out because you're doing all this traveling, you're paying all this money to get to all these races, and, maybe get 12th, 15th, 13th, 10th, maybe, it would be a great result. And, I just knew long term, it didn't really matter in 2019 if I did, a year as an amateur or a year as a pro, because I still just have so long to go developmentally that, it doesn't matter where I'm racing. So I wanted to stay amateur another year, and I wanted to go try and race Kona, because Kona is like the holy grail. It's the epitome of triathlon. And I went this year, and if you've never been to Kona, I think if you're in love with triathlon, you got to go to Kona one year, whether it's to race or just to go watch and spectate, because it's the mecca of triathlon. So I wanted to do that before I turned pro, because once you turn pro, it's like extremely hard to qualify for Kona. Like, it's not easy to qualify for Kona as a pro. So like, I might never get that chance again.
Right.
So I had the opportunity with the Zwift team to go to Kona, and I was like, yes, this is what I want to do. I want to race amateur. Like, I'm still focused on being the best athlete I could be in training and getting better. But I just won't be doing pro races. I won't be doing pro races until 2020. And so I guess people didn't really see that part of why I wasn't taking my pro card. They just thought I wasn't taking my pro card because, like, maybe I wanted to just beat up on amateurs.
Yeah, you wanted to like sandbag it,
Yeah, because it's like, oh, he's a sandbagger. He just wants to win the championships, even though he should be racing pro. Well, it's like, no, I'm just still developing as an athlete. I'm not Jan Frodeno. Like, I would be a low level pro. I wouldn't go onto the pro scene and start winning my first races. I still need a lot to develop. So, it's just kind of that weird transition period of really good amateur, but also a really bad pro. So you're kind of like in between the age group and the pro ranks. So I just chose to stay amateur and develop, not get burnt out. I could choose a relaxed race schedule. I just did a few races. It wasn't a big deal. And now we turn to racing pro for the future once I can start running.
And it's like we talked about, it's like I actually just talked about with Connor. It's about longevity in the sport. This is a sport that you love. And so you are taking the path that's best for you to stay in this sport for as long as you possibly can because of your
Yeah,
love for this sport. So who is somebody else to sit and say what's best for you to be able to stay in something for the longest time? Like,
exactly.
it doesn't make sense, you know?
Like I was saying before about the burnout. Like, I could have gone pro immediately, done all these races, spent all my money in my first 2 years as a pro, and not much comes out of it, and I get burnt out and I say this isn't for me and I stop. Well, that's only giving myself 2 years. Like, I know for me, long-term success, it's going to take me a lot longer than 2 years to get where I need to be. So I need to be in this for 3, 4, 5 years to get where I need to be. So I got to make it last that 3, 4, 5 years and not go all in this year right now.
And going all in, spending all your money, like, if you go all in, you spend all your money, you travel to these races. If you're finishing 10th, 12th, yes, those are respectable finishes, but you're not making any money.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
you're outside the prize purse there. You're an you're an amateur pro, like, you're a very new pro,
Hmm.
so it's not like you're cutting checks. Like, look at Jan Frodeno. Jan Frodeno is getting he's got a freaking Mercedes-Benz logo on his kit.
Yeah,
Like,
he's not strapped for cash.
no, no,
Yeah.
not at all. But it's just the reason I bring this up is because this is how we got connected for this podcast, and it was something that I wanted to touch on. Um, you did, probably to the best of my knowledge, the first ever crowd-funded professional triathlon campaign. And we don't have to get into, any of the final numbers or anything, but you and I don't even know how it started, to be honest, but, people basically just started sending you money on Venmo. And,
Uh,
you kinda just went with it, and you're like, "Alright, well, if people are doing this, like, I'm gonna do it." So, is that how it started? I mean, it was like, was it just one
yeah.
person? You screenshotted it, you posted it, and you're like, "Hey, crowdfunding professional career. Here we go.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens."
That's pretty much exactly how it was. Some guy messaged me pretty randomly, like nothing really prompted it. He was just like, "Hey man, I have like, I don't know, 20 something dollars in my Venmo account. I want to send it to you. I want to send whatever I have in my Venmo account to you as like my own little personal sponsorship." And I was like, "Well, I mean, I'm not going to say no. Like, that's so generous of you. And like, you don't have to do that. But sure, if it makes you feel good, like it will help me out a lot. It will go a long way. Sure." So he sent it to me. It was like $23 or something. And I was like, wow, he was serious. And so yeah, I just took a screenshot of the message and of the Venmo and put it up on my Instagram. And I never said on my Instagram like, "Hey, please Venmo me," or like, "Hey, like I'm doing this thing, like crowdfund my sponsorships, Venmo, whatever." I just put that up there, and then I put my Venmo name, and yeah, other people were like, "Oh, that's so cool. I want to send him, $1," and they would write a little message, and I'd post that. I'd take a screenshot and post that, and then I'd get some for like 1 cent or 69 cents, $2, $20, $25, and it just kind of caught on, and people were like wanted to kind of be a part of it and help out, and it was a lot. At the end of it, it was a lot less so the money that I got. I mean, obviously believe me, that's tremendous, and every dollar goes a long way in my position. But just knowing that people were willing to do that for me, like I have the support of this many people in the community, whether it was $1 or $20, like it made me feel really good. I just so blessed and thankful that they would even do that for me.
Well, and I think in my message, I made a joke with you about it because I said, hey, I'm more than happy to show some support. We had already been going back and forth about doing a podcast. I'm sure
Hmm.
it was going to happen, but I said to you, how much for a podcast appearance? And so we, agreed on a number. Believe me, it was not a ginormous number, but
It's like $5, I
yeah, I
think.
think. But in my message, I said back to you, I said, you're gonna make more money off of this podcast episode than I am because guess what? At the end of the day, this podcast for me is exactly what triathlon is for you, right? I don't have any sponsors on the podcast.
Hmm.
I'm not doing this for the money. Like I'm doing it for the long term to share stories like this. And so, yes, I'm not getting paid right now, but again, it's just like why you didn't take your pro card. Like I'm not quote unquote taking my pro card in podcasting because I'm in it for the long term. Like I don't want to
Hmm.
get burned out, working off of affiliate codes and having to
Hmm.
answer to companies for these affiliate codes. Um, when in the long term, there could be something much more.
Yeah, you're doing it for yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So speaking of that, the last thing that I usually like to ask my guests, and then I'll give you a chance to plug your social media stuff. But the last thing that I like to wrap up with is, you know, for you, um, you were in a point where you're thinking about quitting, your college team. This
Hmm.
is your dream, right? Your dream was to go and run in college, and then your dream was crushed, and you walked away from it.
Yeah.
And you reached out to your coach and said, hey, can you give me some workouts? I still want to do this. But put yourself back in that position and think back to what it felt like. You're walking away from something that was your absolute dream
Hmm.
to start something new. And I want you in that mindset to consider one of the listeners of this podcast may be in that same exact position. Like they need to make a transition, they need to make a pivot, they need to change something, they need to start something. What is one piece of advice that you have for them?
Oh God, just one. I want to give two.
Okay, give two.
I can't pick just one. Well, there's two, but they're two, but they're also like contradictory to each other. So you got to use your best judgment. But and this is something I told my teammates. because a lot of my teammates were in the same position as me. They wanted to quit. And this was after I had quit. They would, some of them would talk to me about it because they were in the same spot. And I would tell them, I said, look, man, I know you want to quit. Believe me, I know it sucks because I was there, but you're running like crap right now. And I don't want you to quit because you're running like crap. I want you to quit. Well, I don't want you to quit, but like if you quit, I want it to be because, it's not the right place for you, not because you're in a slump. So I said, if and when you are running well, when you are running close to or faster than you have ever run before, and you still want to quit, then it's time to quit. But if you want to quit just because, it might suck to go to practice, but really you're just upset because you're not running well right now. And that happens. It happens every year. Everyone, you go through the highs and the lows. If you want to quit just because you're in a low, that's not good enough for me. You got to be hating it when you're running your best. So there's that one piece of advice. Second piece of advice is don't wait, just do it. If you're really not enjoying something, and this could be, whether it's athletics or not, it could be a job or a hobby or anything that you do, and you're not enjoying it, you don't need to wait and say, oh, let me see it play out. Like, let me give it more chances. If you're in an atmosphere that's not good, a work environment that's not good, surrounded by people that are conducive to the negative environment, get out. Like, why are you're wasting your time stuck in this place that you don't want to be in? Like, it's a negative impact on your life. You just got to get out. And, it is scary because you don't know what's on the other side. But if it's crappy where you are now, just get out and try something new.
So before we close it out, let everybody know where they can find you, where they can see what you're up to, where they can follow the journey. And especially now in 2020, you'll be racing as a pro for the first time. So
yeah, if I can run. Main thing is on Instagram. I'm very active on Instagram. I do own a Twitter account, but I don't say I use the Twitter account. So you can hit me up on Instagram. It's at Justin_Lippert. That's JUSTIN_LIPPERT. You can also hit up the Full Send Triathlon team at Full Send Triathlon on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, Justin, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. I really appreciate it. And I do wish you a speedy recovery because I'm excited to see what you have in store for 2020.
Thank you. And thanks for having me on, man. It was a pleasure.
So that is it. That is my full interview with Mr. Full Send, Justin Lippert. And I was super pumped on this interview because I felt like we got a chance to really dive into Justin's story, and we got a chance to break the mold of what some people may see and think of him through Instagram. And it's something that we, got a chance to talk about on the podcast, but it was something that was really my goal because I knew that there was more to Justin than what you see on Instagram and the personality that he can sometimes portray on Instagram. So I'm really glad that Justin was so open and honest on the podcast. And it was just a very, very enjoyable conversation. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. I want to thank you for coming and spending some time with Justin and I. And if you did enjoy this podcast, please do me a favor, take a minute and leave a review. It's something that is simple, it's quick, it's easy, but it's something that really, really helps me out. So if you could do that, I would greatly appreciate it. And I hope that you come back for another episode.